I am lucky enough to be joined by the man at the centre of this documentary, David Beckham. We know you, David, for being a very private person. You don't do interviews like this very often. To sit for 40 hours worth of interviews, was there an element of wanting to set the record straight on some things?
I suppose on some things, but obviously when I started this whole process, and I sat down with Fisher, we had a vision and he had a vision of how it was going to be. And then we did our first sit-down talk, and he was like, okay, we need to change this. I expected to sit down a couple of times with him and then the rest be archive and people talking about. But all of a sudden he was like, okay, we need to do something different. And then we sat down, I think it was either 40, 45 or 50 hours of sitting down. But you know what? There was a lot of things to talk about. There's a lot of things that's happened in my life and my career. Setting the things straight, I don't know. At the end of the day, people know a lot of the stories, but they've probably never heard some of them from me. And for me, going over certain things like 98, I'd never really sat down and talked about really in such detail.
I mean, to hear some of that detail of what you went through was just absolutely shocking. I mean, for you, it's been a cycle throughout your career of at times being sort of held up so highly, being vilified as well, and having to deal with these things. Can I ask you about last year as well, and whether you were upset with the reaction that you got in the press for Qatar and your decision to be an ambassador?
No, I think at the end of the day, I whatever partnership I go into, whatever I go into within the business, we always do our homework on everything. To be involved in another World Cup, for me, was important. I've always said that football is a game that should be shared around the world. This was an opportunity for another nation to get, for the Arab world to get a World Cup and to host one of the biggest, if not the biggest, sporting events in the world. Once we were there, we knew that there was going to be people that were going to either talk about it a little bit more or let the football do the talking. And I think it was a great tournament. A lot of people were happy there. No one came up to me. I had a lot of conversations with the LGBTQ people when I was there, community when I was there, and they said they'd been treated perfectly fine. They'd enjoyed the games. They felt it was the safest World Cup that they'd had for a long time. So no, at the end of the day, it was an important competition and one that I was proud to be part of.
For those within the gay community that were upset, you did your homework behind the scenes.
I always do that.
People will really enjoy this documentary, David. Thank you so much for talking to us tonight. Very nice to meet you. It's a really insightful documentary into some of the aspects that people know very little about, particularly that 1998 World Cup sending off, the vilification he experienced back then, being spat at on the street. It's really a very interesting insight into life as David Beckham, and an interesting few minutes talking to him just then as well.